So, if you look at the nature of information work, which is something that you've been studying, it is sort of really looking at some of the work that is being sent out of the countries where the firm is headquartered. It's changing the boundaries within which firms work.
Hmm.
It's also changing the boundaries within which individuals work.
Right.
What do you see happening in future? What are the trends that have happened?
So, going back to the days of Ronald Coase, who really was the intellectual father of the theory of the firm, the theory of the corporation, I would say since 1933, when he published his three seminal essays on the topic, technology has impacted both the boundaries of the firm, the actually what is encompassed within the firm, but also what we understand by the boundary of the firm. So if I were to pick a couple of things that have changed, it's not just that some firms have gone more complex. Some have also gone less complex and more specialized and have become compacted. But there's one thing you can say, which is the following. The nature of what we understand by the boundary itself has become very amorphous. Once upon a time, there these what I call these value groupings. In a second, I'll explain what it means. Once upon a time, these groups of people working on projects where Company A and Company B have come together, they've written a contract, they will execute against that contract, one of them will pay the other, and they will leave. But now you have these amorphous groupings where a group of companies, let's say a company such as Wipro, is looking to execute a large analytical research center for, let's say, a financial services firm. So Wipro comes in, they call in a couple of bankers, a couple of retired bankers who are experts in the area of financial analytics. They would call somebody like me, a business school faculty that does work on research in risk and outsourcing and offshoring, and they had Wipro's own people. First of all, across geographical boundaries, we'd collaborate using some combination of synchronous communication, such as where in real time two people speak using things like Skype and video conferencing, and asynchronously, seamlessly we'd share data. I'd look at numbers, I'd make my forecast, I would send it to one of those bankers, he would send it to Wipro, the Wipro person would look at it and come back with his position, and we would write out a proposal for the potential client. This is a value grouping. There aren't well-defined contracts. We sort of have a working understanding. Some of us may get paid, some of us may not get paid, some of us may take the data and use it for research instead of taking money. A lot of these value groupings of individuals collaborating across firms, where we don't begin by asking who owns this IP. Is Wipro afraid that the senior investment bankers may take this idea and go and work with another company? Most of the cases, they don't even write NDAs. They'll say, okay, let's work on this together. You have an idea of what are our sensitivities. We understand this. Let's do this. It's happening in legal services, technology, financial services, consulting, both process consulting and management consulting, into some combination of individual free agents, corporations, what I call the real-time plug-and-play value groupings, they start coming together. And those are beginning in many ways to define the nature of work. So the boundary itself, as we understand, both the physical boundary and the economic boundary of the corporation, they're becoming very, very amorphous. Who writes the contract? Who owns the intellectual property? Who is the principal investigator in this? And what is being investigated? What is the nature of economic output? A lot of these things are understood and not necessarily recorded. So technology allows us to have these informal groupings. It's a peculiar kind of a network. So people usually talk of a centrality of a network and of these kinds. I'd say let's be really careful. The centrality of network needs to be slightly modified. In some cases and some contexts, Wipro is the center of the network. In some other contexts, when we are discussing research and analysis, I am the center of the network. In another context, the actual retired investment banker, when he's talking about compliance regimes and what will work and what will not work, he's the center of that network. So that centrality itself, like an amoeba with tentacles, it'll move in the direction it wants to move and then withdraw the tentacles from directions it wants to go. So there is this amoeba-like movement of firms. It's much more so in knowledge-intensive firms or KIFs than in, say, manufacturing corporation. a Toyota or a Honda or a Caterpillar or a John Deere may not have evolved into that. And when you move physical materials, there are strong limitations and constraints that are imposed upon people working together. But with information and knowledge, where the input, the output, the work in process, the throughput are all information, when that is the case, this idea of the corporation and its boundaries, increasingly it's being morphed in ways that we did not think would happen.
So, how is that changing what the managers would need to have as competencies to do well in this kind of a firm?
So, the emergence of multiple plug and play corporations has, in some interesting ways, created I wouldn't use the word devalued, but has faced less of an emphasis on certain kind of skills and more emphasis on certain other skills. The ability to ask questions, formulate key issues becomes extremely important. The ability to be an information gopher, to go and fetch nuggets of information. Throughout the world, there are any number of boutique firms that can do that for you. Pipeline Research is a great example. Pipeline Research is it's recently acquired, they sold to a well-known company. But Pipeline Research is really research on tap. It's a spot market for research. You're a manager, you're working for a multinational, and you are selling a shaving product. And you want to ask the question, what is the potential size of the market? You want to get the answer to the question, what is the potential size of the market for a high-end, skin-friendly aftershave lotion in New England? Once upon a time, you would need to be able to commission market research, to draft a market research survey question, get your internal department, MR department, to go and come back with research. Right now, you can get research on tap. In 72 hours, you can have an answer to this question. It becomes much more important for you as a manager to be able to ask the right questions.